So I had the idea that what we could do is just move around the house along each wall, and I
Perfect.
would just talk about stuff as it occurred to me.
That
How
sounds
does
great.
that sound?
That
So
sounds
let's
great.
start right there. We bought this puzzle in Berlin when Jim was over there for a residency. He had a DAAD. And we bought it and we worked on it. We had a huge apartment in Berlin. So one of the things we did was we bought a ping pong table and put it in the living room.
Uh-huh.
And for when we weren't playing ping pong, this puzzle was laid out and we were working on this puzzle, and it's a Bruegel. But we didn't finish it, and so we packed it up and boxed it up in pieces, interleaved with paper.
Mm-hmm.
We worked on it in Toronto, never finished it in Toronto, brought it to California, boxed it up again, and finally finished it out here. And when we finished it, Jim said, God damn it, I'm gonna glue this thing down. So it was really fun, though. It was a great puzzle to work on because it's the 100 Dutch proverbs or something like that.
Oh.
So each of these actions is like doing something useless is like throwing pies on the roof or like that. I think it was a record by Steve Reich, and I couldn't find it. And not only that, I couldn't figure out how his record collection was organized, which, since he was such an organized guy, seemed kind of uncharacteristic. So I said, what is going on here? How are these records organized? And he said, oh, by the birth date of the composer. So, oh, all right then. And let's see, that's a picture of Jim in, I think, either Bali or Barbados after he was sick. I don't know. He went down there. Okay, this is a print by a man named Stefan van Huyn, who was a great artist. Stefan built a mechanical drum, which the Exploratorium had for a while, and Jim composed pieces for it. It was a programmable mechanical drum. And they were also working, they worked for a long time on a piece that was going to have tuned glass, like a giant glass harmonica. So,
wow.
That never got funded, but. These are really great. Roadside geology.
Oh, no.
So what you do is you're somewhere, so in Arizona. So if we were driving through Arizona, which we did, you'd find like Colorado River to Kingman. We did that drive once. And while somebody drives, the other person reads.
Wow.
And it explains the geology of what you're seeing. And so if there's, interesting rock formations, it explains how they were formed and so on and so forth. But we have dozens of these books because every time we drove somewhere, we did that. CD, Grapes of Wrath. Jim explored the idea of doing an opera. About Grapes of Wrath once we got out here. So we got that CD because of that. This is just out. And I can't give this to you, but this is This was just real. I don't know if it's even been released yet. It was at Telluride last week.
Oh,
But it's about Carolee, Jim's first wife.
okay.
But there's lots of early footage of Jim, and Jim with Stan Brakhage, and Jim with all the Tone Roads guys in New York, and you know, it's a really good film. He would do things like buy every copy of out there of performance of sonatas and interludes, and compare movement lengths and compare
Sure. Of course.
the different performances in a very kind of data analytical way. So as a result, I had 18 copies of 18 different performances of sonatas and interludes, which
Nice.
much as I love the work, I don't need 18 copies. So those definitely went to the library. This is a pencil drawing of Jim when he was maybe 19 by Carolee. And I think it's just beautiful.
Lots of reflection.
Yeah. So he had a big desk over there. He had a desk in the middle of the so-called dining room, which is there, but he mostly worked in the kitchen, on the big table. Always did. Even when we were in Toronto and lived in a tiny little bungalow, he worked in the kitchen. This is the Hawthorne board. In the Concord Sonata and the Hawthorne movement, there are tone clusters. And Jim made this when he first started performing the Concord to perform those clusters. So.
Nice.
So, but I did develop this system of organization, which is ongoing. I have people working on it. Cassia Streb is working on it. Do you know her?
I don't think so.
She's a violist. She's over at the Wolf quite a bit. She's a violist, red hair. Anyways, she worked with Jim, which is super handy, as did Daniel Corral, which makes everything so much easier because they understand, they know what we're talking about, you know. They're working on finalizing this system. And what the system is that all the materials for any one score are in the same place. And at the bottom you have scores that can be given away. And right now I don't sell anything. Every score has a distributor.
Oh.
And so part of this process is making sure the distributors have everything that they need. But I do give scores away fairly frequently, and I will continue to do so until they're all given away, because that was Jim's ethic. He consistently gave his music away. But he would often give his scores away just so the piece could be played, and I continue to do that because it's what he wanted. The goal is I will have one copy of every score. I want one copy of every score. The York archive will have all of the preparatory materials, and the distributors will have everything they need to distribute if people want to perform the work. And that way, when people ask me if they can perform the work, I send them to the distributor. That is the goal. this piece was actually published, and this is actually a very sad story. These two pieces, this 3 rags for pianoforte and 3 pieces for drum quartet, were taken over by a publishing company. They were initially published by this publishing company, sold to another publishing company, and they shredded all of those scores. And I begged them, I said, I will buy these scores from you. Please do not shred these scores. And they shredded them.
Oh my God.
I was incensed.
Why would they shred them?
Because they were their property and they didn't want them out on the market. Hal Leonard decided that those 2 pieces were not selling enough for them. 2 of the major pieces in Jim's, major works of Jim's, and they said, we're getting rid of them and we're shredding them. Okay. So Cassia actually did this. This score was already marked up by Jim.
Yeah.
This is all Jim's handwriting, see? So he corrected 3 versions.
Whoa.
And Cassia actually consolidated all of the corrections onto this one version and had them checked out. So we need to get this recopied. We have a picture of John Cage, which Jim particularly liked because it was a very unusual, non-smiling picture of John Cage. But Jim always said that because John allowed or encouraged himself to be photographed, always smiling and laughing and stuff like that, Jim always said that it made John seem, the way he put it is, he says, John Cage was not goofy at all. And yet, because he was always smiling like that, people really got the wrong impression about that. And he said John Cage was one of the most serious people that he'd ever met. And it was not right. That away quite yet. It's a poster of a concert he did in Santa Cruz, maybe? Yeah, Santa Cruz. This is Jim and Ruggles. This looks like Crayon by Carol Lee. This is a fairly notorious picture of Jim and Fares. By Peter Moore.
Great.
This was Jim's piano from the 50s. I believe he bought this in Vermont and moved it out to Illinois when he went to school at Illinois. We had it, all up in Toronto. It's got problems, which is once Jim started working on the Concord Sonata and Sonatas and Interludes, especially the Concord, just beat this instrument up. It just couldn't take it. And so we bought this piano. So he then tuned them a quarter tone apart, and
So they're tuned a quarter tone apart.
yes.
Nice.
Well, if you got 2 pianos, why would you
Beautiful.
not tune them a quarter tone apart? He also bought dozens of these chronicles, these, you know, like date by date, what happened when. He was kind of obsessed with that. Assigned chronicles to his students in order for them to understand the context of musical events, not just the musical events happening in a vacuum, but what was going on in the culture at the same time. So he was very involved in that. This is a little crayon piece by Carl Ruggles. That he gave to Jim. And those are the original tone roads. Yeah, those three. And I had them fixed up kind of, because a lot of those things were just glued on. You could, all those yellow brown marks, that's all glue.
I wonder if that's like rubber cement.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. That's obviously a photograph of Jim with Ruggles. And I think here are these photographs of our house. So he did all these photographs of Jim. It's the same guy who did the, this was in Darmstadt, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, in 1993. No, this wasn't Darmstadt. We bought these shirts in Germany. I guess this was maybe in Switzerland in 93. So, this is a bunch of records. So here's, for instance, Octandra, conducted by Nicholas Slaminsky. But here's a piece that Jim wrote, is one of his very first pieces, and it was played in the Bennington Composers Conference in 1957, and this is the recording. And I need to get these transferred. I've tried to do them once. The guy and Tom are in their seeds. There's a recording of Men and Mountains by Ruggles. Who knows what recording that is? Philharmonic, Leonard Bernstein, WCBS broadcast. Yeah, so as you can see, we got a number of reel-to-reels. We've got video, we've got audio, we've got commercial CDs, we've got performances, we've got Jim performing other people's works, we've got, there's just a whole variety. I've got DAT tapes.
DAT tapes.
You know it. You know it. So it's a huge job, but my only comfort is once it's done, and I know I've done done the right thing. I wanted to show you a couple things in here. These are some things that Jim saved over the years. But one I think you'll be particularly interested in. He saved like performance pieces in here, and I think this came from Peter Garland. It's a little piece of Alison Knowles that has beans in it. But what I wanted to show you was here's another piece from Alison. Here's a piece for Bertolt Brecht, I think.
Wow.
Not Bertolt Brecht. What's his name? Brecht. George Brecht.
Okay.
It's a tape piece. It's a tape loop of some kind.
Ah.
This is, gotta show you this. My daughter Adrienne made this, and I've always wanted to get it x-rayed because, put this in your hand.
Whoa.
Underneath this, when we were in Berlin,
Uh-huh.
we used to go to the flea markets. You ever been in Berlin?
No.
We used to go to the flea markets, these huge flea markets on the bridges and in the park, and I mean, it's amazing stuff. We've got so much cool stuff in those flea markets. And Adrienne got, because she wanted it badly, a little lead statue of Lenin.
Ah.
And she brought that statue home and did this.
So it's in there.
Lenin is in there. Right? She was like 8.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool, so conceptual. But this piece is the piece I think you really like. In 1966, Namjoon Pike took a computer class with Jim, and it's well documented.
Wow.
I'm not sure exactly where, but it's well documented. I think it was at the New School. Cage was there, Alison Knowles was there, there was a bunch of people there, and Namjoon Pike was one of them. And at the end of it, he gave this to Jim as his teacher, as a present for his teacher. So you can see it's signed Namjoon Pike. And he took this old book. I'm assuming these are all like programming codes or
Right.
something that he would have
That's what they
learned
look
from Jim in the subroutine loop 2.
What year would this be?
This was 66,
66. It's a 6. Yeah. Thank you.
isn't it?
1966.
I think so. Or an 8?
Or 8.
One of those years. So, let's get that. Most of the paper stuff is in boxes now, sorted now. I told you that, there's stuff like coming in all the time. This came from Malcolm Goldstein, who was also going through his archives, and he sent me a new version of chamber music. We have one of these. This was a piece. It was composed for one of the avant-garde festivals. For George Pratt.
Handwritten.
Yeah. So we are actually republishing this. Well, Bob Gilmore is a music historian from, he teaches in London now. He's written biographies of Ben Johnston and Harry Parch, and we also have a publishing contract, and when I say we, I mean Larry Polanski, Mike Winter, and I. We have a publishing contract with the University of Illinois Press, and I can actually show you the manuscript. We're publishing Jim's essays, but in a form that he wanted them published. He had already laid it out. Like I said, he was a super organized person, and he knew exactly what he wanted published. He had the table of contents. And most of the writing was in extraordinarily good shape, really good shape. We're putting these essays together the way he wanted them put together, and University of Illinois Press has accepted it. They are going to publish it, and we sent it off to the publisher in the summer. Changes project that's happening, the Nancaro studies. Oh yeah, a shot has taken. Jim did an orchestration of 3 Nancaro studies, and it plans on publishing it because it belongs to them, obviously. Dennehy interview, book on Jim book, Jim DVDs, publishing contracts. This is all concert programs. This is press about Jim. Mm-hmm. Here was an interesting batch of stuff we found. We found stacks of programs and articles from New York in the 50s and 60s. So this would have been things that Jim and Carolee went to. So, for instance, here's the Fluxus paper.
Wow. That's awesome.
Edited by Fluxus Editorial Council.
Wow. That's cool.
And, of course, the big Fluxus Symphony Orchestra poster.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, cool, huh?
That is so awesome.
Jim had a copy of this framed and in his office at Cal Arts because he had a number of them, and Tashi Wada asked me for it, and I gave it to him because his dad was in it.
Nice.
So there's tons of this kind of stuff that, again, I am not exactly, it'll probably all end up going to the archives because I just don't have any clue as to what to do with it. So this would have been okay, so here's a newspaper clipping from 58. And Jim would have gone to this concert if Ruggles, Becker, who's ever heard of John Becker, Carl Ruggles, and Wallingford Rieger. Jim would have gone to this concert if Ruggles was being played in New York in 58. Mm-hmm. There's that. Evening with Stockhausen in 1964, and Jim would have gone to this. So a lecture recital at Hunter. These are his rough drafts of Interim, which is like his first piece from 1952. Wow. So
wow.
That's kind of where we're at.